Good evening, everyone. At this time, I'll call the meeting to order and we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Keep slowing down. Thank you. And let the record reflect that all board members are present this evening. Next up, we'll have B1, Dr. Croto.
Thank you, Madam President. Tonight we have some special guests with us to perform, and Mr. Musey will introduce our guests.
Thank you, Dr. Croto, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent, and all of our guests. Tonight, all the way from Countryside, we have the choir here to perform, and that's under the direction of Ms. Hewitt. We are ready when you are.
Everybody's always feeling bad when the waters of anger
Thank you for a great uplifting performance. Great job, students. I'm going to give them a moment.
They weren't staying for my policy chapter 1 revision.
I see a few people stayed for Dr. Croto's policy updates. Thank you. All right, next we have student update. Oh, sorry, no. We have audience with individuals, however, we do not have any this evening. Next, we have a student update.
Thank you, Madam President. We do have our update tonight. Mr. Musey, please introduce our guest.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Croto. Tonight, back with us, representing our Dysart Student Council is Amelia Escobar from Willow Canyon, and she's got some information to pass on to us this evening.
Good evening, staff and board members. I'm here to share an update with all 4 of our high schools, as well as what we've been doing with DLC this past month. All 4 schools just came back from Tucson, and we had an amazing time over there, learning about new ideas and a lot from a lot of speakers to bring back mainly about student participation and involvement with all of our sports and scholars as well. Willow and Valley Vista both recently had their Sweethearts Dance, where we had an okay amount of participation. This middle of the year dance is something that we struggle with as a student council because it's hard to get as much attention as we do during homecoming season or prom season, but our attendance does increase every year, and in order to kind of save money, we make all of our decorations instead of purchasing any within our own student councils, and Valley Vista also used one of their students' dads as the DJ instead of having to pay for one on their own, which is a really cool thing that we want to look into more, what students can provide for us and work more with student council as well. As a DLC, this past month, we've been mainly working on our assembly for Freedom Academy, which is the middle school that won that brought in the most food for the Valley View Food Drive. We're making sure that we have multiple games since it is a K-8 school. That way we get involvement from all of the students. We're bringing all 4 of our mascots to make it a super exciting and fun day, as well as some dance teams, and Valley View will be there to present them with a plaque to just show our appreciation and gratitude for the middle schools for supporting us. All of the staff, parents, and students there as well really donated a lot, and it just really meant a lot to DLC and the drive that we do run. And Shadow Student Council is currently in Disneyland doing a leadership workshop that Willow did back in November. It is a super fun experience, and you get to go to Disney, and it's very exciting and fun. Thank you so much for all of your time today, and I will see you all next month. Have a great week. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, next we have superintendent update, Dr. Croto.
Thank you, Madam President. It's becoming that time of year. We have some awesome events going on in our district. I'd like to highlight 2 of those. Coming up on March 8th, we have Festival of the Arts, and that is Miss Marinelli's show. She spends countless hours along with a bunch of people to put that together. It is quite an event over here in the Vista parking lot, actually in the entire campus of the Valley Vista. So awesome event. We can't wait for that. Thank you for all your work, Danae. We appreciate that a lot. Also coming up, we have the Dysart Hero Dinner. It is that time of year. The dinner to celebrate all our heroes is going to be on Wednesday, April 16th. We can't wait to get that going. And the surprise squad is going to start delivering the week of March 10th. So get ready. We're coming to the classrooms. We're going to disrupt the classrooms. We're going to celebrate our Dysart heroes. So that's great. Renee Ryan and her awesome department, they spend a lot of hours putting this together and coordinating all the trips. So great job. Thank you. And we can't wait to do it another year. It's a fantastic time. So additionally, on a more serious note, most of you are aware we were made aware of a video that circulated on social media showing some content that this district doesn't condone, and it was allegedly somebody linked to our district. The original poster turns out that this event happened well over 2 years ago. After extensive investigation on that event, we determined that that individual is not a current Dysart employee. As you know, we take all of our safety seriously, and we investigate all the concerns. With that, countless hours were spent with the accusations of our employees, with the ridiculous content on social media about this district, without any valid proof that it occurred. So we had employees hurt. We had hurt mentally, I should say, and I'm sorry that that happened. But we did take it serious. We looked into it, and it's not an employee. I think this situation serves as an important reminder on the principles of digital citizenship in this district, emphasizing the responsibility that we all share on using our online platforms thoughtfully. In Dysart, we teach our students that just because something's posted online doesn't mean it's factual, and the misinformation can cause some serious harm to people. It's essential that you think critically before sharing or believing content, as words and actions that you may have real-life consequences. Again, I apologize to those individuals that incurred that in our district, and I hope as a community and as adults we can do better next time. So with that, that's all I have.
Thank you. Next, we have governing board update.
So as part of my updates, so over the last month and a half, I've been meeting with the superintendent and the assistant superintendents just to kind of get to know them a little bit more of a, a friendly face and get to know their area of expertise as well. I did make the joke, like the Office Space joke, I was one of the Bobs, tell me what you do here kind of situation, but it wasn't so much that. It was just getting to know them. The cool thing that I was able to utilize with all of them was there was one question that I asked them all at the end. And it was funny because Dr. Asai, she answered it the wrong way, even though I told her there was no wrong answer. Because the question was, what's your favorite thing about nature? And it's because my daughter is very artistic, and she likes to draw and paint, so I wanted her to be able to draw something for him. And if I recall correctly, you said your favorite thing about nature was like the wind? The sounds. I'm like, well, we can't really paint the sound, so no, you got to try again. So my daughter is working very hard. She's already finished 3 out of the 5, so they will be delivered next month. But I do thank you guys for your time over the last month, just to get down into the nitty gritty there. I also did attend the Walk and Roll for Inclusion. That was held by Dysart Special Education PTSA. Really great organization. It was a great community event that I went to. I took my son. He went into the park, and I think it's called Dreamcatcher Park, and he played all the games. He had a great time. And they have a really great initiative where they're trying to make the playgrounds a little bit more inclusive and evolve them a little bit better so that students of all nature can actually utilize the facilities even more. So I do appreciate what they do, and what they continue to do. I also did take a tour of the support services facility with one of our assistant superintendents. And I will say I ate at the cafe, and they have some of the best food. And something I didn't know, which I'm telling all my friends now, it's open to the public. And it is a great adult, grown-up grilled cheese, I want to call it. But it was fantastic. So I'm telling all my friends. So I'm hoping that they get a little bit busy, and that word gets out. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay. On January 29th, I attended the school visit at El Mirage. So I just want to say thank you to Principal Haney and Miss Ireland for a wonderful visit. On the 3rd of February, I attended the A+ breakfast at Cimarron Springs and the A+ lunch at Shadow Ridge High School. So great job. Congratulations to those schools. On the 12th of February, I attended the Freedom Traditional Got Talent show. And the talent that was displayed, these children, phenomenal. Singing, presenting, dancing, just kicked it out of the park. So congratulations to those kids. And then on the 19th, I attended the school visit at Thompson Ranch, and just want to say thank you to Principal Kerr and Assistant Principal Quintana. It was a great visit, so thank you for your time. And that's all I have.
Okay. I also visited El Mirage Elementary School and Sunset Hills Elementary and Thompson Ranch Elementary School. And we visited with parents, teachers, students, the staff, and administration. And it was a very positive experience, and it seemed like the teachers collaborated with each other, and the parents were very supportive of the schools, and it was all a very, very good visit. Thank you.
And I was able to go, I was honored to attend the Canyon Ridge and Dysart High School A-label to give them their congratulations, and we were able to present them a banner. And I am so looking forward to the Festival of Arts coming up, so that's all I have.
Not much to report. I was able to attend the visit or tour of the Desert Diamond Arena for our high school graduations with our cabinet and high school administrators. And it was fascinating just to see how much they're bending over backwards to meet and accommodate all of our needs for graduation. So that is turning out to be kind of an exciting change. And also just really looking forward to the Danae show at the Festival of the Arts. That's all I have. Next up, we have the consent agenda, and I'll move to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
I'd like to make a motion to have discussion on the agenda item F3 about the AVID. I had it written up. Let's see.
You said item F3?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So someone will need to second that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
It's the AVID Summary Institute.
She wants to amend.
Oh, sorry. It's the AVID Summary Institute being held on June 15th to the 18th.
Ms. Ayala, you're making a motion to amend?
No,
Or a motion to amend?
pull it from the agenda for
Okay, so
discussion.
you're making a motion to amend.
So there's
To
two,
poll
there's two
F3.
motions, one has been seconded, correct? No, Steve seconded.
Yes, your motion. You motioned to approve before she said anything.
Yes, no, I agree. I motioned to approve the consent agenda, there was not a second to that. She's made a motion, I believe, to approve the consent agenda item, but pulling the item F3 for discussion. That has been seconded by Board Member Skvara. Okay.
Yep. The second was on the amended motion.
Correct.
Okay, yep, that's what you're voting on.
Okay.
Do I need to second your approval?
No, we're voting on hers.
So the motion is to approve the current agenda items as presented with the exception of moving item F3 to action and discussion. That is what you're voting on.
Okay.
It's not showing up. I vote yes.
I think.
Okay, please note on, if you're following the agenda, that will move to item H7. F3 will move to item H7.
And should we refresh to make sure that happens? You have a minute. Okay, sorry. You're good. We might need to do that again. So if ours is not there, we should refresh again? Okay. You might need to refresh again. I may have refreshed too early.
Okay, it's been moved.
Okay. Does everyone see that? H7? Okay. We're good? Okay. Okay, sorry about that. Moving to item G1, Dr. Croto.
Thank you, Madam President. Tonight, we're going to present information regarding our exceptional student services specialized programs and the locations for the 25-26 school year. And Dr. Asai will be leading us through this presentation.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. It is my pleasure tonight to present to you on ESS specialized programs and locations. Oh, okay, there we go. We're going to start off with ESS specialized programs, as long as I don't mess up the presentation there. Before you will see 6 of the main, I guess I would say, programs that we offer. What's not included is our push-in model, where a teacher goes into the classroom, which would really be considered our least restrictive environment. So we're going to start off with resource. Resource is typically, I guess, what most people think of when they think of exceptional student services, pulling a child out to work on grade level skills, or maybe a few where there's gaps in that knowledge. What we're going to talk more about tonight are our more targeted programs. The first is Structured Teaching Classroom, our Structured Teaching Classroom, or STC. STC provides a highly structured environment with strategies to support communication embedded in the classroom. Students in STC must meet a criteria for the alternate assessment and use a modified curriculum. So these students don't take our general state test, our AASA. They qualify for something called the MSA test. And usually it has to do with a cognitive or adaptive, a larger cognitive or adaptive disability. You know, you can think of our kids, sometimes they have Down syndrome, sometimes moderate disabilities, mild disabilities, things like that. STC 2, which is the next one, our Structured Teaching Classroom 2, also provides a highly structured environment with support and communication. Students here do not meet the criteria to go in an STC classroom, and they don't have a modified curriculum. They actually learn grade level material with more assistance, more structure, and a focus on that communication. Our Aspire program is for our medically fragile students. These students might have needs with respiration. They require the care of a registered nurse, and we have one assigned to the program. We have our positive engagement, high expectations, achievement, student-centered, and effective communication, more succinctly known as PHASE. PHASE houses some of our ED students. There is a focus on providing positive social skill growth and behavior strategies to support student achievement. Students who go to PHASE from other schools start in a standalone classroom where they're in that classroom all day, really learning positive behaviors to get along in the general education classroom, and they kind of earn their way out. In PHASE, we hope to work ourselves out of a job. Kids will go out for a period, then 2 periods, then 3 periods, hopefully so they get all the way integrated back into our general education classrooms. We also have or we don't have yet, but we are recommending that to have a developmental or a specialized preschool program next year, which would be like PHASE for preschool, based on the needs we have with some of our preschoolers this year. Sometimes our programs don't meet the needs for students as hard as we try to do that. Some students have more severe behavior or emotional needs. Some lack progress in our current systems, and some are significant safety concerns. We currently outplace to 8 different places, the 2 primary being what's featured on the slide, the Austin Centers for Exceptional Student Services. Currently, this is in Peoria, and we are responsible for providing busing as well as tuition to that program. We do also host Desert Choice schools on our campuses. One is located at Riverview. They occupy some rooms at Riverview and some at Dysart High School. And this we also provide our transportation for and then fees. I want to talk about where these programs are currently located and where they'll be located next year. So currently 18 of our 24 schools have an STC that we talked about, and you can see the schools listed there. We have 2 STC2 classrooms because that was a pilot this year. Both of those are on the east side of our district, located at Sonoran Heights in Rancho Gabriela. Our phase classrooms, it looks like they're at 3 schools, but really it's age, according to age, because Countryside is only a K4, phase at Ashton is a 5-8, and then we have Dysart High School. Our Aspire program for K-8 students is located at Kingswood and at Shadow Ridge. And as I said previously, our specialized preschool program does not currently exist. On this slide, you'll see where we are going to be located next year. The schools in green are additions. The one in red are subtractions. With the program locations being expanded, we will have an STC at 20 of our schools. This is going to help keep our kids in their local neighborhoods, and we'll talk about other benefits in a minute. Canyon Ridge is being eliminated. They have a very small footprint geographically, and their students will go to Sunset Hills. And at one time, all Sunset Hills kids went to Canyon before we built Sunset Hills, so they're neighbors there. Willow Canyon we're eliminating as we need a place for our STC2 students to go when they get to high school. And as you see, that'll be located at Willow Canyon. We are adding an STC2 to the west side of the district at West Point, and then our specialized preschool program at Canyon Ridge. The benefits to relocating programs are listed here, primarily bringing students back to their home schools. Currently, we have 33 of our STC students that leave the Asante area, and they're on a bus. We don't want any kids on a bus that long, but especially some of our most vulnerable population on a bus for 30 minutes plus. You can see why that isn't the best situation. It creates more permanent locations. Some kids have been bounced from program to program, and we hope by putting more kids at their home schools that'll lend stability for those families. And it'll also make us more efficient with transportation. Currently, as we bus kids across the district here, where there's room, we end up bouncing all over the place, and we want our buses to be on time. We want kids to be at school on time. We have been really pondering how we communicate these changes to families. Change is hard. Change is hard for any family. And we have talked to our principals. We do feel it's best for current principals to make those personalized phone calls. As an STC parent, STC2 parent, most of those parents have really tight relationships with our principals because they're connected that way. So we are asking principals to make personal phone calls followed by letters. Moving forward, we will have the program locations displayed on our website, so you can really see if I live in this boundary, here's my program location. If I live within this realm, here's my program location. And then to really hit in the phone calls and the letters, if any parent would like an IEP review for the transition plan, that we would offer that. If a student's going from my school to Craig's school, to have us meet together just with the family to talk about the needs of the student to make sure it's a good, clean handoff and the students are being supported like they need. I will put my glasses back on so I can see you better. My paper's not as good, and stand for any questions.
I know you mentioned that change is hard, but I do think that for some of these families that have been forced to split where their children are placed, if they want, parents of multiple children, if you're zoned for one school, but you've kind of been forced because of the IEP situation, you're forced into another school for another kid. So I think in some ways it will keep siblings together moving forward. So I look at it as more of a positive.
We're optimistic for that, yes.
Yeah.
I'd like to add on to that too, because I've been in that situation where my kids went to 2 different schools. Does make it easier to have both children at one school. I do very much appreciate that you guys are offering that IEP review. That's very should have a positive impact for the parents and for any staff that's going to be taking over if they go move to another different school. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Dr. Asai, do we know how many students utilize the off-site locations?
Oh, the off-site locations. I'm going to look to Corey so I give you accurate numbers. About 155.
Okay. And then how many students do we currently have in the STC and STC2 program? Okay, no problem. And then with the different shuffling around of the different locations, do we know what type of impact this is going to have?
We do. Currently, there are 33 students from Asante who attend another school. Ashton Ranch, it would affect 1. Canyon Ridge, I have 22. So I have the numbers there. I think it was about 100, 120 altogether.
Thank you. And do you know when the communication will begin? Do you know when you'll start notifying parents?
Probably within the next 2 weeks. We wanted to give it as much lead time. We didn't want to call parents before we talked to the board.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on that? Okay. Moving to item H1, Dr. Croto.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Madam President. Tonight we continue our adopted policy review. So we are on Chapter 1, the final chapter of this year. We've gone through all the policies, and then we will start back up. Tonight we're looking at really all of Chapter 1, as I said, but really only have changes in a few areas. So the first of all, the wording in policy 1201 1201 and policy 1202. We are changing that policy to align with the presidential executive orders and reverting back to the language of 2020 Title IX interpretation. So you will see that as defined in sex and those things, we have crossed out or redlined 2 areas to be including sexual orientation and gender identity, as I said, for the presidential order and going back to Title IX of 2020. In the third policy, policy 1301, those are no changes. Those are just format changes. If you look there, some language is shifted around into the format. And with that, I'll stand for any questions. And those are the updates for policy 1.
I move to approve revisions to policies as presented.
I'd like to second that.
Oh. Motion carries. Moving to item H2, Dr. Croto.
Thank you, Madam President. Tonight we bring to you a motion or a discussion, actually, to revise our policy 3302, which is our transportation boundaries, as well as develop some ESS specialized program transportation boundaries. And that kind of accompanies, now that Dr. Asai presented this, our locations, it will make a little bit more sense as it goes all together, as Mr. Musey will discuss our transportation boundaries. So, Mr. Musey.
Thank you, Dr. Croto, Madam President, members of the board. We do have a presentation that's really going to go hand in hand with what Dr. Asai just presented and talking about transportation boundaries related to ESS, but also to look at eligibility as well. So going to start with the ESS portion and give some specifics as to what we're seeing within there. Currently, right now, when you talk ESS transportation practices, we provide that transportation, obviously, regardless of distance and location. It's going to be, we're making sure that students are getting to the program as it's been assigned and what it's saying in the IEP. So whatever program that they are supposed to be in and what exists on each of the campuses. So as Dr. Asai had illustrated, we're going to look at a map here in a minute that shows where those are located. Open enrollment, and it's important to understand that piece, is right now, currently, we allow for transportation regardless of the location of where the student is at, and we'll bus them to whatever school according to what open enrollment school they've applied for. That's the current practice. There has been no restriction based on program location currently in the district, and then also, as the fourth bullet illustrates, currently transporting ESS students across school boundaries throughout the district has been a practice that we have been doing for some time now. So really what we want to do is look at a change, and this is an efficiency change for efficiency, but then also for what's best for the child as well in meeting their needs. So I want to point out some of those proposed changes that we'd like to bring to you. First of all, we want to make sure that students are assigned to the school and the program that's based on their needs and where they live. So obviously it's based on their needs, and then we want to get them to the closest program that's to their residency. Transportation in that case would be provided for each of those ESS students to that closest program. So when we look at that piece, we start to look at where the boundaries are at for each of the programs. As Dr. Asai illustrated each of those ESS programs, I'm going to show you a map here in just a second. And then finally, that fourth bullet really illustrates and defines that open enrollment piece, because families that want to open enroll to a program outside that boundary will not, we want to propose, will not receive transportation outside of that school boundary. We want to send them to the closest program possible. So for that specific piece, as you see there, open enrollment is approved based on capacity. Currently, that's the practice, all right? So if they're full, we would automatically say, no, there's no capacity there. But if there is capacity, the student can be approved for open enrollment under the law. However, we would not want to provide transportation outside of that home boundary because we say there's a program closer to them that we can get them to. And that's what we're proposing. So to show that, I think it's important. Now, there is a maps that are illustrating many of the programs. When we talk about preschool, Aspire, our phase programs, all of them. But what we want to show here is this is one specific example to showing many of our students that belong to when we look at the structured teaching programs. And you can see for a K-8 model, there is all of our programs that exist and where the local boundaries are at for each of those K-8 schools. That helps to see that. Now you can go in and you can pull up any of those maps, and those are attached. We wanted to show you this one because it really illustrates where each of those boundaries are at for the K-8s. And that includes middle schools, K-4s, and K-8s in this one. When you look at the next one here, again, another model here to show you, these are the high school boundaries, and you can see Valley Vista where their boundaries at, Dysart, and then Shadow Ridge for the STC program. Willow, you'll notice, is not there because it's an STC2. That's a different map. So that's how boundary maps would work as far as getting the student to the program closest to them. Okay, so really, I think in the end, really you start to ask, let me get into some of the specifics as to why we're saying this and how does it benefit our kids. So the first part is, how does this benefit our students? Students will continue to receive the same educational services. That's number one. We want to make sure that's happening. Students will get transportation to the closest program that meets their needs, okay? And that, and in many ways, we also talk about that is that when you're going farther, that means students are on a bus a lot longer. So shorter timing is better for the kids anyway. Assignment of programs will start with the school that's the closest to their home is the benefit to them, and the program assignment will be the next best location on capacity and needs when not provided at the home school. So if it's not at the home school in their boundary, we look at the next best location that's closest to them. What does that do as benefits for the district? Reduces the strains and unnecessary costs that are happening within transportation. It reduces ride time, as I mentioned, especially for our most fragile students. Creating a more positive transportation experience. When there's less time, there's less behaviors, and it's the ability, obviously, for our staff to ensure that safety very effectively. It assists in the route running times. So we are meeting times and making sure that kids are getting to school on time. And anytime we have an issue, even for example on a bus, if it's something that can't be solved at that moment, sometimes we've been forced to go back to the home school because there might be an issue, or sometimes even if a parent isn't available at the stop. We'll never just leave a kid. So the farther it's away, the more that puts us behind on getting kids home on time when we're talking about buses running 3 routes in order to do that, either 3 routes in the morning and those 3 routes in the afternoon. And that's the part about when we say drivers are not feeling as rushed. We want our drivers to feel effective and efficient in what they're doing, and this will help to alleviate some of those problems as well. That's the first part on the ESS portion. The other part that we want to talk about is eligibility under policy, okay? And this is going to be that next piece. So currently, policy 3-302, this really provides for us where those boundaries are at. All right, right now it exists for any of our students that are in the K-8 model, so kindergarten through 8th grade. Those students currently, if they're in that, and you can see there, students have residents that are more than 1 mile from the school of attendance. Okay, is currently. Now, this is a separate topic than the ESS. I just want to be clear on that. This is all students. Okay, if it's more than 1 mile right now, then we provide a bus. All right, high school students, it's more than 1.5 miles is providing that, and that's what exists currently in the policy. What we're bringing to you and proposing is to make an adjustment to that. And what we'd like to do is to expand that. We'd like to expand that and lengthen that. And I'll get into some of the, the aspects of that as to why, and we understand that that's a change to our community. But I'll get into the specifics of that here in a minute. But here's what we're proposing. K-8, to expand that from 1 mile to 1.5 miles of attendance. So they're farther than more than 1.5 miles. The second proposal is for high school to be farther than 2 miles. Okay, so we're lengthening it by 0.5 mile on each of those. And here's our reasons why we're bringing that to you and what our thought process is. So what does this change provide? Okay, what does increasing the distance do? A reduction in regular education routes. Sometimes you'll hear it called the red routes. You'll hear that term because it's regular education. The reduction increases ESS routes to lower capacity, to more manageable load, and less time on a bus for our ESS population. Okay? So what we're saying there is that we can, by doing this, we're having, it's going to reduce the number of routes needed. That's going to get into cost savings, and I'll get into that in just a minute. But once you start reducing the number of gen ed routes that you're running, we can also help with the ESS routes that are out there. And it's going to help it could help in a variety of ways. And I'll get into that in just a minute, a little bit more specifically. Second question there, how many buses will take out of our fleet? At least a minimum of 6 regular education routes would be impacted by this. All right. What will happen to the drivers on those 6 routes? They would be, actually, we would use them more in the capacity of the ESS routes. And there's a couple of varieties there we could do with that, meaning that they could help, because some of our ESS routes are very crowded. So they could help us and assist us with that. It could also help with some of the private transportation when we work with some of these private placement transportation where we're hiring outside vendors. And the last question there, how many students will be impacted? Right now, there's currently somewhere between 400 to 450 students. So it's less than 500 students currently that are in that boundary of 1 mile less, 1.5 miles less for the high school that are being impacted by this. So that gives us an idea of, now could that number fluctuate? Sure, there always could be that element of fluctuation, but that's currently what we're seeing right now. So talking a little bit about cost savings to this proposal. So when we walked through the change of when you start to make the change on both of these, making sure that the ESS bus routes are more within the program boundary, we looked at that. So this combines both. And also looking at reduction of the general ed routes. we're going to see a cost savings as we estimate. And remember, cost change on any of these. So fuel, we're estimating approximately 180 to 200,000. We're expecting, because you're pulling buses out, that's a preventative maintenance from somewhere between 20 to 30,000 less that you're spending on bus maintenance. Wear and tear repairs will going to be reduced because you're using less buses. The overtime sub pay, because now we have more bus drivers available and we're spending outside to bring subs in. So that's also a savings. The contract vendors, and you can see the contracted vendors, private companies are not cheap. So anytime that we can have the ability to use our own drivers and not go outside of our organization to hire these private companies, that can save you up near in the neighborhood of $100,000. And the ESS boundary change is the other piece that's more specific to that, where that'll keep those buses, as we talked about, within their own boundary and not driving, for example, a student that maybe wants an open enrollment, I'm being extreme on this, from the Asante area all the way over to Luke, let's say. So that's one of the reasons why we say no closest program to your home school, okay? I think it's important to point out to you the fleet statistics. Right now we have 134 buses on our fleet. 91 of them are on the road. Okay, right now. 43 of those regular education buses, okay? 40 buses that we have running in district ESS routes. We have 3 out-of-district ESS routes that we currently run. We have 5 buses that are dedicated to field trips. And then you see 32 special use buses. A lot of those, when we say 32, they are the oldest of the oldest buses that we have. And they're buses that are going to fill in when we have problems. So we don't want to use them because there's more chance of them breaking down. They're the buses that are close to 20 years old. We also have 11 buses that are out of service. A lot of those are used for that we, we'll use to find parts on and really just to and a lot of times, I mean, it's our ability to cannibalize those buses as needed in order to keep the other buses running. So, with that being said, and we see the age of the buses ranges in ages from 2004 to 24. 70% of that bus fleet is about 15 years or older, and the lifespan of a bus is about 20 years. Problem is you start to run out of the ability to find parts for them. You can't find the parts to keep some of them going when it gets too old. So that's just the nature of the element on keeping them running. But I wanted to give some context as to why also that we've looked at this very closely, of what we're doing in transportation, and something that we believe is important to us. So before I move forward, I wanted to back up and really highlight this piece that when we did that estimated cost, we estimated about $500,000 a year is what we've targeted and what we can do for savings to help us in that aspect of, and I don't want to go too much into that piece, but that helps us towards some of those expenditures that we recognize as buses are aging. Can you buy buses? But then it could be any other expenditure, obviously, the district is looking at in the long run, too, as we have to take care of things. So as we get to answer questions, I do want to point out we do have here to help assist if there's a question I don't have the answer to. I get the fortune of working with our Director of Transportation, Danny Moore, if you can wave, please, is in the audience. We also have our Director of ESS, that Dr. Asai works quite a bit, Corey Montano, and our Planning Administrator, who obviously that Mary Dell gets to work with quite a lot, Kevin Shipman. So they're here also. If we need to talk about any of these specifics, they can jump in and assist. So we'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Musia. I would like to add, too, before questions, if I could, Madam President. We understand change is difficult. This is not an easy thing to do. It is something that we take very seriously, we take to heart. But in November, our community spoke, and they said we need to live within our means. That is exactly what we're trying to do. If you look at our bus fleet, you have 94 buses currently, and we've said this throughout the whole time last year. 94 buses are 15 years or older. We need to start finding ways to replace buses. This is the reality of it. It is not easy. We don't take the decision lightly. We have been discussing this for many, many, many months in Cabinet, but it's a necessity. It frees up about $500,000. That's 2 buses. But I can't sit here and promise you tonight that it's going to be 2 buses because in the other things, when the community spoke, we have air conditioners, HVACs to fix. If one HVAC goes down, there goes the $500,000. So we are trying to find efficiencies. We are trying to do the things we need to do to keep this district on top and running smoothly. So with that, we will stand for questions. I just wanted to say that, and so you know where the context was on that. So we'll stand for questions.
I have I have a couple questions. The first one on the students, the 400 to 450. Do we know how much or how many students are elementary grade versus high school?
Madam President, Members Kabara, I need to look into that specifically. I know that we do have our Director of Transportation. She did study that for us. I know that there was I don't want to say that it was a majority, and I'm pretty sure majority was at the K-8 level, but I could be wrong about that. Yes, we can get you a specific numbers to those numbers, to that piece.
For the 4 to 450 students, are we going to be communicating to their parents that the transportation is going to be expanded, the routes, so they know next year that they might need to find other transportation?
Yes, Madam President, Member Drake, that's an excellent question. I mean, we talked about that. We discussed that in cabinet about how, obviously that would be something that would need to happen immediately. I think it's a personal call, communication type of thing. I mean, obviously we can put information out, but that would be something that I think it's important that we're very transparent and we're doing immediately to make sure that they understand and they're understanding the whys. And obviously, giving them some context to why we're moving this direction. But immediately was our discussion. Obviously, if that was a decision that was made now, we can't wait, and it has to be continuous communication as well.
And then second, the 40 in-district ESS routes. Since we're going to be eliminating 6, did you say 6 routes? So is that going to decrease or add to this?
The 6 routes would reduce from the general ed routes, would be the regular education routes. It could give us the ability to run some additional ESS routes, but those ESS routes obviously are closer within their boundary. The idea is because when you're putting 13 to 14 kids on some of those buses, it can be difficult sometimes, and it takes longer if there's a behavior. However, the other part of the ESS element that we've discussed is it's also going to help you in the private placement sector too, where we've discussed also being able to utilize drivers for that as well, because we've been using private vendors when we don't have enough ability to do that or take care of that just based on the needed buses or even the ability of having a driver available.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
So I have a question. How many vendors do we currently have driving ESS buses that we're looking to fill in on that with the 6?
The current number of vendors, yeah. I'm gonna ask for some help on that piece because I know that we have 2 different vendors that we use.
So that's just 2 buses or 2 different vendors with how many buses?
9 routes for Desert Choice. We could find out how many for ACEs as well. So, and I think that's an excellent question because that was part of our discussion is how that could impact, when you're paying for outside, the outside vendor, they're going to charge you based on the number of routes that they're running as well. So that cost does add up over time.
Right, and I'm trying to see if we have 9 plus whatever, and we're looking at reducing it by 6 and being able to use those 6. And then, are we going to be able to just go to 1 vendor and possibly reduce costs? Or are we going to have to maintain the 2 vendors? These are some questions.
And I might ask for some for some assistance on this piece. I know that the intent when we look at this is that when you're reducing the number of routes on the, you're going to have more drivers available. So what we want to do is to put them in available buses that we can within our own fleet and have them run those routes on their own versus paying those outside vendors. So the idea is to eliminate and use a vendor, obviously less often. I can't say that we would never use a vendor. Obviously there's aspects of, you're talking about when you're all the way to an ACES program that's not right around the corner. I mean, it's over on close to 67th and Cactus. So I mean, there are some routes that they have to run and some programs, but the intent is by having those drivers and those routes available within the district, we wouldn't need to depend on vendors as much, and that's going to cut your cost tremendously just by getting away from them.
Thank you.
One thing that hasn't been mentioned on here, and maybe it's because we're not deciding on it tonight, but some of our athletic events, our away games, away competitions, things like that maybe happen on weekends. I know in former leadership, it was stressed that we need to be present at all of these events. More recently, we've been acting more level-headed and limiting those things to maybe like a state championship or a playoffs, something of that nature. Are we going to continue under that common sense model that we were only going to do it for like the big things?
And that's a great question, Madam President. We had went into this year under the direction of Dr. Croto to make sure that we took a much closer look at transportation, of how we're handling athletics. One of the things that our director, Danny Moore, did in sitting down with athletic directors is we talked about what that should look like in getting to and from games. So we made some very strict boundaries of what we're doing with that and ensuring that we're transporting to the needed AIA games with those events, doing it more efficiently, using white buses as needed, which is our coaches get trained on. So we're utilizing that as well. We're not sending, I think you're referencing to, we are not sending the to our away games outside of the district, or especially we talked about, we were seeing travel all the way to the East Valley and other things of the band and cheer, things that are nice to haves, but really they were running transportation costs, and we were our expenditure was extremely high. We have budgeted that. At the end of this, I think a nice part to be able to report is that we are living within our means now of what we've budgeted for. We're ensuring that we're meeting, that we're hitting those expectations, that we're not overspending on transportation to send those other groups. So that's been a big piece of what we're doing, and we do have conversations on each season. We audit the transportation expenditure at the end of the fall season. We just did the audit on the winter season, and we're going to be doing that at the end of the spring season to make sure that we stayed within our means and our budget and that we did not go over that.
And the answer to your question is yes, we will continue that.
Perfect, thank you. I just want to mention too that that's kind of an added tax to our parents as well, especially our boosters that are involved in marching band, cheer, pom, those kinds of things, where you're having to haul equipment to Chandler, Queen Creek, Mesa. There's really no reason during a regular season that our parents should be essentially paying a tax to have their kids in our schools and performing in our arts or athletics. So also just wanted to, I'll get off that high horse for a minute. I just want to mention, I know Dr. Croto had talked about it, living within our means, making these hard decisions. And for a school district that hasn't passed a bond since 2006, I don't know why we haven't made some of these changes sooner than right now. And I'm just very proud of our administration and our district for looking at this and taking it seriously, because we need to make the most out of what we have, and we don't have much left as far as a transportation fleet right now. So I'm very pleased to see the presentation tonight.
Hey, can I just ask another question?
Yes, ma'am.
Since we have, I think she said 155 students that go to the, okay. So are we utilizing the private vendors to transport them to Desert Choice and Austin's? And then if we get rid of them, then those 6 will take over those routes? Is that what we're looking at?
The overview of that is, yes, Member Drake. I'm gonna make sure that I have a clear answer on that one is for sure, because that's the intent.
Okay, 'cause that's
is
what
to
I wanted
move
to
them to them.
clarify.
I don't believe
Okay.
it will entirely capture every, I mean, 155, right, if that was the number that was used, but the intent is really to do more of our own transportation of our own kids.
Right.
Rather than using outside vendors.
Okay,
It-
I just
it
wanted
will
to get that
alleviate
clarification.
some of
Yeah.
those routes. It will not replace all of the routes.
Right. Okay, I just wanted clarification.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, and one other point that Dr. Asai just mentioned to me too is that obviously by changing the ESS boundary routes, that's also going to help and assist in drivers being more readily available to do some of those drives that we need to do.
And does this also, for our MEC, don't we utilize bus routes for MEC Tech too, to take them to and from?
Are you referring to the West Mac?
West
Yeah,
MEC?
I know that's a different expenditure that happens, and that does come from the money that's provided through CTE and West Mac. But that is money and we do get kids to that program. So I don't want to speak too much to that piece, that I don't say something wrong, but I do know that there is specifically money that's allocated for that through CTE.
Okay.
Are those typically our wrapped buses? Like the
Yes.
white buses, but they're wrapped? Yeah, so those are like the site-specific
That
buses,
is,
right?
yes, Madam
Okay.
President, that's correct.
Okay. I move to approve the revision to policy 3-302 and adopt the ESS specialized program transportation boundaries as presented. Motion carries. Okay. Moving to item H3, Dr. Croto.
Thank you, Madam President. Tonight, we have a recommendation on a health benefit plan for 25-26. And Ms. Spidell is here to share the health benefit plan changes.
Thank you, Dr. Croto. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, cabinet, and community. Tonight, I will be presenting the information on our employee benefits package for the 25-26 fiscal year for your consideration. So each month we review our medical claims experience, and currently 6 months into the year, we're running at 99% of claims to funding, meaning that our total costs for our medical and pharmacy costs are running at 99%, pretty in line with the amounts that are being received in premium contributions. So that's a good start to the year. Now, Blue Cross is our provider for our self-insured plan, and we carve out pharmacy through Prime Therapeutics. The reason we do that is we receive benefits and rebates directly from this pharmacy vendor. So last year it amounted to about a little over $1 million. Now, our initial estimates at the time we shared with IBA was just the initial estimated amounts, and then a more detailed information was presented to our Employee Benefits Trust Board a couple weeks ago at our meeting on this recommendation that was going to be brought tonight to you. So currently, we have 2 medical options that the district provides. One is the high deductible HSA plan, and the other is our PPO plan. And so the recommendation is to continue to renew those 2 medical plans with no design changes to the plan. There have been, however, some IRS guidelines and regulation changes, so they've increased the deductible for the HSA plan to an additional $100 on the individual plan and an additional $200 per family per the IRS guidelines. And the overall increased renewal rate that we have for Dysart is 3.6%, so this is under the 7% national trend that we're seeing across the board at other companies, and even other districts I've heard are looking in the teens, really the percentage increases for the coming year, so we're standing at a 3.6%. So we do work with an actuarial to determine what our estimated costs will be for the following year. They look at historical claims, they look at demographics, and other factors to give us an estimate of what we think next year's cost will be. So the overall cost for next year is estimated about $17.4 million. That's the sum of the fixed and expected claims. So that represents that 3.6% increase over our current year. So our expected pharmacy rebates, however, we do expect to receive about $1 million again to offset those costs for the coming year. So here's a detailed breakdown of our two plans, the PPO and the HSA base, as well as the number of employees that are on those two plans. And you see down, the breakdown between the various 4 tiers of employee only, employee plus spouse, employee with children, and employee plus family. So the EPO plan does tend to generate the highest costs, even though it's only 250 employees that are enrolled in that plan. That does tend to drive the higher costs, so you see the related higher premium amounts there. And really those premium totals for this coming year, and I'll get into them in a little bit, but they're covered through a combination of district contribution, employee contribution, as well as the benefits trust has continued to commit, providing a little bit of contribution to help offset some of those premiums. So this is a 6-year history of our employee premiums, and on the far right is where you see the proposed premium rates for this coming year. Although medical premium costs, they increased almost 6% or almost 4%, the district is absorbing most of that increase to not pass that full cost over to our employees. You'll see that the HSA plan up there on the top, it actually had, we continue to have a zero cost option, so the district does provide a zero cost employee only option for our employees. But we have had 3 years of no premium increases to the HSA plan. However, we do have to have a little bit of an increase for this coming year, and you see that in the 25-26. So we have slight increases in the HSA plan as well as in the PPO plan that you see below. So as mentioned, the district, excuse me, we are recommending to absorb most of that increased cost, benefits costs. So we'd contribute that $666.48 per month per eligible employee, which is up 3.6% from last year, where we contributed $643 per month. So this is an additional about $8,000 that the district does contribute per employees for those benefits compensations. And additionally, we are committed to continue providing the annual matching contributions to employees who are in the HSA plans. So we match up to $500 or $750, depending if you are on individual or with your family. And we also provide a $250 contribution for employees who receive their routine physical. Additionally, we offer wellness points through our Well Styles program. So if you hit that 60,000 points mark in activity through the year, we contribute an additional $150 into your HSA plan. If you are in the PPO plan, we actually offset the premium. We subsidize about $150 to offset the cost for the PPOs. So ultimately, if you're on the HSA, you receive either $900 or $1,150 in additional contributions to your health savings account, depending on which plan you're enrolled in. So here's a financial position for our Employee Benefits Trust Fund. As mentioned, we are a self-insured district, meaning that we are entirely funded through our employee contributions, and then all the medical and pharmacy claims come out of this fund. So we're ultimately that self-sustaining fund and self-insured as a district. So we review with our Benefits Trust Board, and they've committed, because we've had a pretty healthy reserve in that fund, they've continued to commit offsetting some of those premium costs for our employees. We're previously doing about $1 million every year. We're offsetting some of those premium costs. We've been backing off a little bit because we were dipping a little too much in reserves. So they're currently about $650,000 is what's being subsidized every year for employee contributions. But ultimately, we're just trying to minimize the impact that our employee premiums are experiencing. So we do review this net position a few times throughout the year. I look at these monthly just to ensure that we're still in good shape, and we make any adjustments if needed for the following year. So those were our, just an overview of our medical. I'll briefly go over our supplemental and voluntary employee benefit program packages. So we do offer 2 dental plans. This first one is our Delta Dental PPO plan. And as you can see, the employee monthly cost and the district monthly cost, there are no plan design changes for the coming year, and there are no rate changes being proposed. We also offer a prepaid dental plan through Total Dental Administrators, or TDA. So it does have an employee-only, no-cost option. So the district does cover that plan cost for an employee-only plan. And again, no plan changes or rate changes are being proposed. We will continue to offer vision insurance through Avises as our provider. There are slight increases in the rates. You see there from the current is the left column, and then next year's proposed rates on the right there. But beyond that, no plan design changes are being proposed. This is also an entirely voluntary coverage that our employees can choose to opt into. That's the voluntary accident insurance through Colonial, and no changes are being proposed for the coming year. We will continue also as a district to provide for the group term life insurance for our employees, as well as the accidental death and dismemberment insurance through Symetra. Because we have actually had an increase in claims activity on our life insurance claims, we are seeing an increase for the district. Again, this is a district cost that we will take on. If an employee chooses to take on those supplemental life insurance, there are no proposed increases for their plans. And then here's just the remaining supplemental and voluntary programs that are offered to our employees. So you can see the various providers as well as what benefit program that entails. And no rate changes are being proposed with any of these vendors. So something that is a change for this upcoming plan year is, a change to our telehealth services. And it's to change our provider from Teladoc to Blue Care Anywhere, which is under the Blue Cross umbrella. I know our employees have grown well accustomed to utilizing Teladoc over the years. Unfortunately, there are new changes that went into effect as of 12/31 through IRS regulations that would make the current agreement not compliant with those IRS guidelines. And really what that means is our high deductible health plans, they must now require a fair market value copay for those telehealth services, and really that $10 mark just doesn't meet that fair market value. So we are now required, and truly if we keep going in that manner, we could put our health deductible plan in jeopardy of not meeting IRS regulations, and potentially the employees, their HSA plans could face IRS penalties. So we want to ensure we're protecting our employees as well as the district, so that does require us to use the Blue Cross contract rate of that $67. It is an increase from the current amount, but we want to ensure that we are being compliant with IRS regulations. There are a couple new benefits that are being offered this coming year. So we're going to be offering a new benefit to employees with all-state identity protection. It will be available to all benefit eligible employees at no cost, even if they choose not to enroll in any of our other benefits. So they will receive the employer-paid pro-individual plan, which when we do our benefits enrollment, we'll outline all of the different benefits that comes with it. They can opt to buy up into those additional plans as presented there. And then finally, we are continuously looking at just additional ways that we can promote and also grow participation in our wellness programs. And so, as mentioned earlier, while we do offer an incentive for employees who reach that 60,000 points to get an additional HSA contribution, we want to just make sure they're having more activity throughout the year and just really increasing their participation in our different wellness activities throughout the year. So we're recommending this gift card program. It's something that we've seen at other districts as well. This is entirely funded through that Employee Benefits Fund. So it's something that as they reach those various tiers, they can receive those various gift cards entirely managed through our consulting company. And so that could provide them an additional $75 in gift card, just an incentive to continue to be active in our wellness programs. So in summary, we'll see the increase of 3.6% in our medical plans with, again, the district's going to absorb most of that increase. There will be small increases on the HSA and the PPO plans, or the EPO plans, excuse me. We are recommending to continue offering that $0 employee contribution on the HSA base employee-only plan, as well as on that the total dental administrators, continue to provide them an option of a $0 cost there. We will continue to provide district contributions to the HSA plans. We have our stop-loss coverage remains at $320,000 per claim. And again, the trust board with the benefits trust board has continued to agree to fund that reduced contribution for the year. And if there's any adjustments, then we'll provide those to the board at a later date. And so at this point, I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. I just want to confirm, and you may have answered this already and I may have missed it, but the consulting firm, is that the VSMG that we see on the slides?
That's correct. Yes,
okay. So that consulting firm, do they work directly with you or do they work with the trust board?
They work directly, Madam President, they work directly with us. So we are in constant communication with them and ensuring that if we have a need on something, they provide just some additional consulting advice on this might be a better option for your employees, et cetera. But they do manage a lot of the administrative components of this. And so we utilize their services to help us manage a lot of the benefits programs.
Okay. But they provide an option. They don't present a package and say you should do this.
Madam President, that's correct. So because we are self-insured, for example, the 3.6%, we use an actuarial to give us what the estimate for next year could be. We could be very aggressive and say, you know what, we're not going to pass any increase on. Now, if next year suddenly we really have a spike and we didn't collect enough premium contributions, now we could have an issue with our benefits trust fund taking a really major financial hit. So we do rely on their expertise. I look often at just the previous years of experience, how on the mark were they? That helps us in driving our decisions to utilize their consulting advice.
Okay, but ultimately we're making those decisions.
Madam President, that is correct. We are self-insured, so ultimately we make the decisions on our medical plans.
Is it actuaries that you're working with?
Correct. So the actuarial company is Brown & Brown. They're the ones who utilize and give us the actuarial estimates that they provide. They come in December, and they meet with the Benefits Trust Board, and they go in a lot of detail to say, this is where you're trending. Your high claims are a little higher than expected. And actually, when they came in December, we were trending pretty high. So we were initially expecting about a 5.6% increase. And then we started seeing the last few months started trending a little bit lower. So that brought us down a little bit under. So it is something that is managed and reviewed continuously. And we don't just take the first option. Right. We just want to make sure we don't pass significant costs on while still ensuring we're protecting that trust fund.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I got the question, how do you get all this fun stuff of healthcare and IRS? I mean, I look at the healthcare costs go up every year, and it's disgusting, but I know we can do what we can do. So I very much appreciate you guys working hard on this and trying to keep those rates as low as possible for the increase, because the gentleman sitting right next to you, he's got the hard job of trying to bring people in, and having a great benefits package, or at least a solid benefits package, will help us retain and get the talent that we need here. Right. So I very much appreciate your help on this.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I move to approve the Employee Health Benefit Plan for the 25-26 school year. Motion carries. All right, moving to item H4, Dr. Croteau.
Thank you, Madam President. Next three items, H4, 5, and 6. We're going to welcome some new members. Well, they're not new, but some administrative appointments which are new to them. So Mr. Mangley will introduce our recommendations.
All right, thank you. Madam President, governing board members, like Dr. Croteau said, there's 3, 4, 5, and 6 that I'll be taking care of tonight with the governing board. The first will be Lisa Pericini. Is she? Do I see her out there? Lisa, come on up. Come on up. The administration and cabinet members are proud to present and ask the board's consideration for approval for this appointment for Lisa Perugini. And she has 28 years in education total. She has 11 years experience as a site administrator. She has 20 years in the Dysart Unified School District as we speak. And her background is English and history. And so we're really excited to present to the board and request the approval from the board to place her at Willow Canyon as the new principal starting July 1.
I move to approve the appointment of Ms. Lisa Perugini as high school principal.
I second the motion.
And just so we're clear, I don't have any more kids going to Willow, so none of my kids will get in trouble with you. Motion carries. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Madam President, governing board members, next on the action discussion item, we are going to ask Dr. Romero to come up to the front there. So the next two that I'll be speaking with the governing board about is, it was a competitive application process. It's pretty extensive. We posted this position in January 10th, and we closed it back in mid-February. I would not want to go through the interview process. I designed the process, but I would not want to go through it. There's 4 stages of the process for them to go through, vetting out and separating the good from the great. And so I'm excited to share with you that Dr. Romero has 23 years of experience in education, 4 years as an administrator, and 13 years here in the Dysart Unified School District. And her background is music. Yes. And so with that, we're going to request the board to consider a recommendation for Dr. Romero to be placed at Ashton Middle School as the principal.
Thank you. I move to approve the appointment of Dr. Romero as the elementary school principal.
I second.
Congratulations.
All right.
Motion passes.
And last, I will ask Mr. Andrew Griesel to join us here. So again, as a reminder, these last 2 positions, it was a competitive application process, pretty thorough. I will share with you, Mr. Griesel has 21 years of experience total in education. He has 13 extensive quality, successful administration years behind him, 12 of those years here in Dysart Unified School District as an administrator. So his background, and I can say this, professionally I've known Mr. Griesel as an unbelievable, one of the best math teachers I've seen in my profession with my experience. And so his background is math, very good math teacher. So tonight, we are recommending the board's consideration for approval to be the principal at Sunset.
I move to approve the appointment of Mr. Andrew Griesel as elementary school principal.
I second the motion.
Motion carries. Congratulations. All right, next, but the last one. H7, Dr. Croto.
Thank you, Madam President. I believe this item was pulled from consent for some questions on AVID. So I will yield the floor to to Ms. Iola for those questions.
I was just wondering, it says the AVID is advancement via individual determination. I just wondered, is it for a new curriculum for the schools, or what? I just wanted more information about it.
It is a program. I'll have Dr. Asai. Can you explain AVID, please?
So AVID, to our knowledge, has been in our schools since 2010. AVID really seeks students who need a little extra help, whose parents predominantly maybe have not gone to college. It is a way to support them in our schools. There is a 9th and 10th grade curriculum that focuses on study skills, test taking, and career exploration. In 11th and 12th grade, they focus on resume, applications, scholarships, college applications, along with interviewing skills. 2 days a week, the AVID class is focused on things like tutoring, because like we said, these kids might need a little extra help. They might not have it at home to provide them help with skills, and it might be Algebra 3, 4. It could be AP English, because part of AVID is committing to an AP class or a higher class. That's basically AVID in a nutshell.
So here it would just be used for high school students, or because when I went on the website, it has elementary and.
We've held it at Dysart Middle School and at Ashton Ranch. Currently, I believe I'm turning to Sunny, but currently it is only at it is at the two still, at the two high schools at Valley and at Willow. Oh, I'm sorry, at Valley and Dysart High. No, we've had it at middle school before, but we no longer do. It's also a competitive, it is an application class, so we do have an application packet to get in that consists of a teacher recommendation. Students have to answer why they would like to be in the class. The parents have to sign off on it. So it's not a class that we really place kids in. Some schools do. If the kid's GPA is too high, they don't let them in. That's never been a practice in our district. If a kid wants to take AVID because they think they could use the extra help and they want to apply for scholarships and applications, we have always let them in.
Okay, I was just concerned about if it included DEI, or since we're trying to get away from that, I thought, or...
We don't endorse any form of DEI. I guess it could be considered because some people, it could be considered, that didn't come out right, because you are taking kids whose parents, one of the things is you have points on the rubric if your parents haven't attended college, because you might not know how to apply and things like that, but that's by no means the only criteria. Looking at the application in front of me, we look at the academic GPA, the answer to their questions, like are they enthusiastic to be an AVID? It would do you no good to place a kid who didn't want to do this in AVID. They have to have some willingness to really further their education. Teacher recommendation, they do have parent level, education level, previous enrollment in AVID, the rigor of math in middle school, and is there a sibling or family member in AVID? So I think we would be hard-pressed to say that it promotes one group over the other.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And this is a program that anyone can attempt to enroll in and to apply for, not a guarantee of acceptance, correct?
It's not a guarantee of acceptance. In researching it and asking our principals who ran it, have they ever kept a kid out because their parent was in college, or have they ever kept a kid out because their GPA is too high? The answer was no. The only thing that's kept them out have been behaviors.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
And again, I can't speak for how it's run throughout the country. I can speak for how we run things in Dysart.
I move to approve overnight and out-of-state travel requests as listed.
I second the motion.
I don't know who had that. You got it? Motion carries. Next, we have item I1. Do we have any requests for future agenda items? Okay. Hearing none, I move to adjourn the meeting. Motion carries. We are adjourned.